The Senate hearing room had been buzzing all morning, the kind of low-grade static that built up when too many cameras were in one place, all hungry for a soundbite. It was supposed to be a routine oversight committee session on education policy, but the real electricity came not from the agenda, but the lineup. Senator Elizabeth Warren, the razor-sharp former Harvard professor, and Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, known for his country charm and plain-spoken punchlines. They'd tangled before, briefly on the floor but never directly, not in the kind of setting where the stakes were public and the microphones hot. From the moment Warren entered the chamber in her signature blazer and glasses, her notes clutched. In her hand, like a scalpel, it was clear she was here for a dissection. Kennedy, meanwhile, looked every bit the Southern gentleman, with his usual folksy slouch and a pen tucked behind one ear like he might fix a tractor after the hearing. What no one expected was just how fast things would go from policy to personal. Warren began with the usual rhythm, citing studies, quoting stats, carving through the Education Secretary's recent proposal with surgical precision. When it came time for Kennedy to respond, he cleared his throat, leaned forward, and launched into a tale about a school in rural Louisiana, where the only computer lab was run out of a janitor's closet. The story drew polite chuckles, maybe even a few nods from across the aisle. But Warren wasn't in a generous mood. "Senator Kennedy," she said, adjusting her glasses with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "I appreciate your storytelling, but anecdotes aren't analysis. This isn't a high school debate team. We need evidence-based solutions, not folksy detours." The room tensed. Kennedy chuckled softly, looking down like he was polishing a line. Before he could respond, Warren added with just enough bite, though I suppose the University of Mississippi didn't emphasize that kind of rigor in its curriculum. There was a pause, a long collective breath as everyone registered the jab. Kennedy's face didn't change immediately. He didn't shoot back or sputter. Instead, he tilted his head slightly as if amused by something only he could hear. "Well now, Senator," he said, his accent honey-thick and slow. "That's a mighty fine way of saying you think you're smarter than me." He let the words hang in the air, his drawl curling around the phrase like smoke. "You see, I come from a place where we don't confuse degrees with decency, and we sure don't equate tuition bills with common sense." A few eyebrows lifted across the dais. Warren raised hers too, as if to say, "Go on then." Kennedy obliged. "Now I know I didn't go to Harvard, and I sure didn't teach there either, but I reckon I've read enough books to know that being educated don't mean looking down your nose while doing it." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes either. "You might have learned your lessons from textbooks, Senator Warren, but I learned mine from balancing a shovel in one hand and a scholarship in the other. And I promise you, the dirt under my fingernails didn't stop me from reading Aristotle. It just meant I didn't have time to tweet about it afterward." The room, now fully silent except for the soft hum of the overhead lights, seemed to shift. Warren opened her mouth, then closed it. Kennedy, sensing the tide turn, pressed in further. "I don't mind a little sparring, I really don't, but if you're going to throw a punch at my education, you better make sure your ivory tower's got a fire escape. Because the folks I represent, they don't want a lecture. They want a leader, and they don't give a damn where I went to school, as long as I remember who sent me here." A smattering of applause came from the back of the chamber, where aides and interns watched like theatergoers unsure whether the drama was scripted. Even a few senators looked like they wanted to clap, but thought better of it. Warren gave a tight smile, perhaps recognizing that her jab had backfired. "Well," she said, "we certainly have different philosophies on communication." Kennedy didn't flinch. "No, ma'am, we just have different audiences. You speak to faculty lounges. I speak to feed stores." It would have ended there if not for a reporter in the second row, who tweeted the exchange in real time. The tweet exploded before the hearing even adjourned. Cable news producers scrambled for clips, and within an hour, Kennedy's comeback was running on a loop. Conservative outlets heralded it as a David versus Goliath moment, while liberal commentators winced at Warren's uncharacteristic misstep. "Elitism never plays well on camera," one op-ed began. Others noted that Warren, who had built much of her political persona on being the scrappy Oklahoma-born teacher who fought her way into the Ivy League, had, in a moment of heat, played the very card she usually decried. For Kennedy, the moment was a lightning strike. His inbox filled with invites, from primetime interviews to donor events. He brushed them off at first, wary of turning a viral clip into a victory lap, but his staff urged him to lean in. "This is a moment," they said. "Own it." And so he did, appearing that night on a conservative talk show and recounting the exchange with just enough humility to make it stick. Meanwhile, Warren's team worked to contain the fallout. A carefully worded statement went out that evening. Senator Warren deeply respects all educational paths and regrets any misunderstanding caused by her remarks. But the damage was already done. By the next morning, a satirical sketch had been posted on YouTube, depicting Warren as a haughty professor quizzing Kennedy with flashcards, only to be bested when he pulled out a shovel and a Constitution. The comments were brutal. Even some of Warren's usual supporters admitted the moment had felt off-brand. She avoided the press for a few days, focusing instead on committee work and town halls. When asked about the hearing at one such event, she replied simply, "I got caught in the moment. We all have bad days. I respect Senator Kennedy, and I think we both want what's best for students." It was the right tone, but the clip of Kennedy's comeback had already taken on a life of its own. It had become the kind of moment that transcended politics and entered folklore. In Washington, it didn't take long for the story to mutate. Soon, it wasn't just about education. It became shorthand for authenticity. Kennedy's staff released a short campaign video featuring audio of the exchange layered over images of rural Louisiana schools, cotton fields, and small-town diners. The tagline, "Common sense still has a seat at the table." It worked. Poll numbers shifted. Fundraising jumped. Even voters who didn't agree with Kennedy's politics said they respected him for standing up. Meanwhile, Warren doubled down on policy, introducing new legislation aimed at student loan reform. But for weeks, no one could discuss education on Capitol Hill without someone making a joke about Harvard or feed stores. Staffers coined it the gaffe that keeps on giving. But in private, even Warren acknowledged it had taught her something. "I forgot my own story for a minute," she admitted to a friend, "and he reminded me, just not the way I would have liked." Months passed, and the hearing faded into political history, eclipsed by newer dramas and louder clashes. But for those who witnessed it, the exchange lingered. It was a rare unscripted moment in a world built on sound bites and staff-prepped remarks. It reminded everyone that sometimes authenticity cuts deeper than argument. Kennedy continued his rise, not as a policy heavyweight, but as a symbol of plain-spoken defiance, of rural pride, of the idea that dignity didn't come from degrees. Warren, meanwhile, became more careful with her words, though never less fierce in her fights. In a strange way, both senators gained something from the moment. One got the spotlight, the other got a lesson. And for a brief shining minute in a room built for formality and pretense, politics had felt startlingly, undeniably human.